Today we're going to finish our book, The Year of Miss Agnes by Kirkpatrick Hill. Chapter 15. We knew we didn't talk the right way because other teachers had told us we had terrible English. But Miss Agnes said there were lots of right ways to talk. What we talked in the village was right, she said. That's the way to talk here. And when we talk in Athabascan, that's the right way too. But there's another way to talk. And that's what we want to talk when we go to the city or go away to school. And that's what she said she was going to teach us. So we learned that when we're somewhere else, we shouldn't say ain't. And we shouldn't mix up our E's and our I's, like say pin when we mean pen. That's really hard to do. We shouldn't say gots instead of has. You had to say did, like he did it, not he done it. And you can't say, I seen a moose. I have seen a moose. That's the right way. Or I saw a moose. And then there's the thing about nothing words. That's really hard to get straight. If you use too many words that mean nothing, then it means something instead of nothing. Like if you say, I don't want nothing, then you mean you want something because you said nothing wasn't what you wanted. So you say, I don't want anything. Whew. The thing about good English is that when you say it right, it sounds wrong because we're not used to saying it right. Miss Agnes said it just takes practice. Jimmy Sam looked at Miss Agnes and smiled that smile of his, like when she told him about the stars and all that. He was really happy with this good English he was learning. He liked to do things right. After we studied English for a while, we made up this good English game. Every time we caught somebody saying ain't or using too many nothing words or anything like that, we had to say gotcha. Then we could put a check mark by their name on the board. Whoever had the littlest check marks for that day was the winner. I was the winner in that game lots, but it seemed like I had to think over every word I said before I said it. After Christmas, Little Pete and Roger and the other kids were in school for a little while before they went out beaver trapping. That's when Miss Agnes read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes to us, and Kidnapped, and a book about King Arthur. She knew those big boys would like those. All of us did. They were so exciting. In February, when everyone was back from beaver trapping, Miss Agnes read the story of Hudson Stuck to us. That's the one about a priest. He used to travel all around here with a dog team, and he built a school at Allakaket and the mission and told all the people from around to move there. That was really interesting. There were lots of people in it who we knew. The old people were right in that book, 10,000 Miles with a Dog Sled. Even my grandpa. It made us feel like something, that someone had written a book about us and we were in a book. But the part Miss Agnes liked was about the boy the priest took with him. He was an Indian boy who didn't speak any English, and every night where they camped in their tent, even if it was 50 below zero, the priest would teach that boy, and after a while he was so smart he was going to go outside to get it to be a doctor. Hudson Stuck was sending him out to school to do that, to be the first Indian doctor. But the boy was in a boat that hit an iceberg, and he and his new wife died in that cold water, so he never became a doctor. Before Miss Agnes came, we didn't know people like us could learn that much and could be a doctor. It was in my head then I could do something really big. I didn't want to have babies like Marie or marry some boy. Maybe he'd get mean sometimes. Or have another girlfriend like Martha's husband. I wouldn't like that. I could make my own money. Sally Oldman went to Nana when she was 16, and she worked there helping doctors. She didn't want no bunch of kids either. Any. Chapter 16. By spring, we could all read pretty good and write stories and tell the names of places on the whole map. That big map was one of our best things. Plasker liked it the best. Plasker used to like to touch the map and say the names, like magic words, like he could feel something coming from the countries on that map. I could do it that way too, sometimes. When I touched Africa, I could see the long, flat place where the elephants and the zebras were and feel the hot wind on me and smell the dry grass. Now I wanted to go everywhere, and before I never knew there wasn't everywhere. By spring, I could add and subtract. Bako could write now too and read books Miss Agnes wrote for her. If she wanted something, she could write now to tell us. Not really good, but good enough that we could tell. She knew lots of signs, more than 200, Miss Agnes said, and so did all of us. We learned right along with Bako. Only Miss Agnes had to look the signs up in the book all the time. She just couldn't remember them as good as us. Sometimes she just asked us what the sign was for book or walk or something, and we'd tell her so she wouldn't have to look it up. I have an old brain, she'd sign to Bako. It's not good. A young brain is good. Even sometimes Bako would sign bad things at us now, like when she got mad at us. Being mad in sign language is funny, so we'd laugh, and then Bako would have to laugh too. The funny thing was that we didn't just use the signs to talk to Bako. We used them to talk to each other. Like if little Pete said something, maybe Roger would sign to him, "You're crazy." Or maybe when I saw Bertha in the store, I would just sign to her, "Hi." Pretty soon, a lot of the grown-ups were learning some signs too. Sometimes the old men sitting around the store with old man Anderson would be funny, throwing their hands around, pretending like they were talking real fast in sign language, just to tease us. When Mama saw everyone getting interested in it, she even started to learn some signs. She would ask me how to say things like, "Be careful," and "Hurry up," and bossy things like that. But me and Baco didn't care. We were just happy she was learning and not mad about it anymore. And even sometimes Mama would forget and would sign to me just like I was deaf too. The first time it happened, we all laughed. Even Mama. It was funny. By the time the snow had a hard crest from the warm days, it was time for nearly everyone to go to spring camp. Little Pete and Roger went to Long Lake. Marie and Plasker and Toby Joe went with their folks to North Fork. And Bertha went to spring camp with Alacacat. There were just 5 of us left in school. Charlie Boy and Selena and me and Baco and Kenny were staying in town until it was time for fish camp in the summer. Spring camp was the best of all, really. Grandma and Grandpa and me and Mama and Baco went with Uncle Patty and his family once. It was so good. We had 2 white tents we put up by the lake. In ours, there were 2 bunks made from spruce poles, and there was a table and 2 gas boxes for chairs. Uncle Patty shoveled the snow over the edges of the tent to keep them tight and set up a little Yukon stove in each tent. Those stoves kept the tents just warm. When the ice on the lake melted, Grandpa and Uncle Patty and the boys would go out in little canoes and get as many muskrats as they could. Then at night, all the grown-ups would sit and stretch the muskrat's skin. When they were skinning, Papa told us stories about the old days when he went for muskrats with his dad. They used to make a tent with moose hides and put over willows bent in a bow. They had hard times those years with no stores. Sometimes they were very hungry in the spring. But this year, the kids who were going to spring camp were sad. They knew when they got back, Miss Agnes would be gone. It would be all over. There'd be another teacher next year. Maybe a nice one even, but never the same as Miss Agnes. What if she wouldn't let Baco come to school? When we talked like that, Miss Agnes would try to make us like the way things would be. "Baco will go to school," said Miss Agnes. "The priest at Alacacat said the church is going to send her to a good school for the deaf. When she's 14, it'll be good. You'll see." So Miss Agnes would be gone, and Baco would be gone. Sometimes I went in the outhouse, and I cried hard about that. Maybe if one of us was smart like that boy in Hudson Stucks, the one who was going to be a doctor. Maybe if we didn't always have that fish smell on us. I know she said she couldn't smell anything, but maybe she would stay and teach for us another year. Maybe if this England didn't have trees with pink flowers on them and that place where people sing so hard it bounces off the walls. The days were so warm, the ice on the river got rotten and we couldn't walk on it. Everything sounds louder when the snow's melting, and you can hear noises from a long way off, like the sound of someone chopping wood at the other end of the village. Then the ice upriver started to push the ice by our village, and pretty soon that ice was breaking up into smaller pieces and moving down the Yukon. The ice crunched and smashed along, pieces bumping into each other noisily. When the ice went out, it was almost the end of school, and we were all getting ready to go to fish camp. Miss Agnes packed up her things. She didn't pack the books or phonographs or records. "I'll leave those for you," she said, "for next year. You tell the new teacher where the old books are. She'll likely want to use them." She started to take the map and pictures off the wall, but when she turned around, we were just staring at her. It seemed like we'd die if she took those things down. So she looked at us and then dusted her hands together the way she always did when she was making up her mind. She didn't take anything off the walls. "We'll just leave it this way," she said. I helped her some after everyone else had said goodbye and was gone. When she had everything packed, she said to me, "This teapot is for you. Remember the day I first came when you and Bertha had tea with me? This is to remember me by." "Miss Agnes," I said, "I don't need nothing to remember you by. Anything," I said before she could correct me. "I will always remember you." "Yes," she said, "being a teacher is like that. No one ever forgets their teachers." "What will you do when you go to England?" I said. "The first thing is I'll get into the subway and ride to Paddington Station." She smiled. "And then the train to Cambridge. And then I'll find a little house, and I'll live in it, and I'll go to King's Chapel and have tea in the pub." Her face was sad and happy too. I didn't want to look at her face anymore because I was going to cry, the kind of crying that makes your nose run and your throat ache. "I have to go," I said. "Mama's waiting for me." "Yes," she said. "Take good care of Balko, will you?" "I will," I said. Chapter 17. We got back from fish camp late in September. It was really fun to be there, but I missed Miss Agnes. Since she wouldn't be our teacher anymore, I wish we could just stay at fish camp all winter too. Then we wouldn't have to get used to a new teacher. At camp, all my cousins from Nulato were there, and the aunts and uncles and my Uncle Patty. Bako taught everyone her sign language. It was the first time she was able to talk to all those people. She wasn't afraid anymore or shy like she used to be. They were all happy to see Bako so easy now. They all bragged about Mama when she talked to Bako with signs, like she was the one who invented sign language. I think that made Mama feel good because she was nicer to everyone that summer and not so bossy. We worked hard there at fish camp, just like every year. Uncle Patty and his big boys would put the fish wheel in the river, then they'd go out every morning in the boat to get the salmon out of the box. My aunties and Mama would cut the fish into strips, and they'd drop it into a big tub full of salt water. Bako and me would take it out of the salt water and carry it to the fish racks to hang up and dry. It was really hard carrying that slippery, slimy fish just out of salt water, and if we dropped it in the dirt, our aunties would just yell at us. But we got a lot of fish, maybe more than any year. This year, I wrote down the fish on every day on the calendar. At the end of the week, Bako and I would add up those fish. Bako and me were the only ones who could add those 3 numbers across. The grown-ups were proud of us. Mama didn't say anything, and she tried to act like she knew all along that we could do that adding. But I knew she was proud of us, too. We could tell she didn't think school was a waste of time anymore. It seemed like everything reminded me and Bako of Miss Agnes. Everything had something to do with what we learned from her, as if we just woke up to see the world around us and way beyond us. But when we thought about the things she taught us, and we thought about her not being there anymore, there was a lump in my throat every time I thought about that. I thought how we'd go to England to see her, but I knew I was just telling myself a story. But maybe we'd always look for that to happen. The way people think getting something better is always going to happen to them someday. It's late at night when we get home from fish camp. It's raining, dark, and gloomy. No lights anywhere. Even old man Anderson must be asleep. No one knows we're coming. Grandpa ties the boat and jams a pole in the mud to hold the boat away from the bank so it doesn't swamp. I have to carry the cooking stuff we're bringing home. It clanks away in the old burlap bag, knocking against my leg. Bako is carrying another burlap bag with our radio in it, all wrapped in a piece of tarp. When we come around the corner, we see a light in the school. Someone has a lamp there. The new teacher. Bako and I stop to look. I feel terrible, and Bako does too. I can tell. We can't stop ourselves, though. We got to look. I put my bag down and walk softly up to the school window. Bako's behind me. We look in, but there's nothing to see. The room's the same, only darker than it was. Only one light burning. Then we see there's a yellow cat sitting on the table, licking one paw. His eyes are closed, and he's licking that paw slowly, slowly. Bako pulls in her breath sharply. We've never seen a cat except in pictures. It's pretty. Then someone comes out of the darkness to shoo that cat off the table. And it's Miss Agnes. Her hair is different somehow, but there are the pants. The cat jumps off the table, and Miss Agnes stops to scold him. And then I hear music. That King's choir. Bako is crying, like she could hear it too. Tears are running down her face. We stand in the rain and look at Miss Agnes until she moves out of the window and into the back where we can't see her. And then we go home. School will start at 9, and we want to get a good night's sleep. I'll ask her tomorrow why she came back to us. That's the end. But I want to read you a little bit about the author, Kirkpatrick Hill. Kirkpatrick Hill was raised in Fairbanks, Alaska. She graduated from Syracuse University with majors in English and education, and for the past 30 years has been an elementary school teacher, spending most of her time in a one-room schoolhouse in the Alaska bush. Her 2 previous books, Tough Boy and Sister and Winter Camp, also take place in the Alaskan wilderness and have been immensely popular. Isn't that cool? She was a teacher just like Miss Agnes. I hope you liked this book. Read more to you later. Bye.